lighting testing, soundings, sign. What am I saying? Oh, I never know how to start these things. Hi, alright? I'm terrible. I just sit here for ages thinking, what do I say? How does without giving it the American, what's up? Just doesn't work in a British accent. Anyway, now I'm getting a phone call. Hello? Yeah. Bless him. Anyway, right, so we're back from holiday. We got back a few days ago now. It's Monday. Got back on Friday after a 12-hour journey from Brittany to the UK back home, and it was a great holiday. Really enjoyed it. I must admit the old adage of nostalgia not being what it used to be was certainly true on the old ferry journeys. I always remember that as a kid, of being a really exciting part of the holiday, and it being kind of cold in the UK and stinking of diesel and all these exciting things going on. But actually on the ferry itself, it felt a bit more like J.G. Ballard's High Rise, if I'm honest. It was a little bit of an interesting experience, but the actual holiday itself was fantastic. Had a great time, good for the mind, body and soul. A bit of a kind of reset, really, just reminding me, well, actually maybe not even just reminding me, but actually giving me a bit of an insight into what's important in life. Bit of an epiphany whilst we were away as to the importance of why we're doing all these things. I might talk about those another time. I'm still kind of processing all that at the moment, so we'll maybe get onto that another time. Anyway, back now. Second week of the holiday, didn't do a huge amount of training, and show you a very short little montage of what I did do. Swam in the Atlantic a couple of times. It really reminded me just how much I adore open water swimming. I love training in the pool, but ultimately getting out and swimming in the sea or in the rivers or lakes or something is really, for me, what it's all about. Got out and did a couple of runs. One of them was a wicked tempo session that I did in about 32-degree heat. It was a brilliant run, I have to say, a really encouraging run session, but I didn't do a huge amount of volume. Here's the video of those things that I did whilst I was in France. Hit. I would really love it if you subscribed and hit the notifications button below. I celebrated reaching 100 subscribers earlier this week, only to have a look today and find out I've lost a subscriber, so I'm back down to 99. So I'd love it if I could get back over 100 subscribers. I'm not entirely convinced why I would love it, but it's a number, isn't it? Like with anything in my life, it's all about targets and measures and all the rest of it. So if you are watching this and you'd like to watch some more videos about triathlon and my journey getting back to fitness and trying to reach the best level I can in terms of being a human being, triathlon, father, husband, all that kind of stuff, then hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications button. Every week I've put a video up for the last, I think this is week 66. I put a video up, and just following that journey really. I'm definitely on the upward trend at the minute. I've had a year of kind of flat up and downs, not very much going on. This is definitely in the upward trajectory at the minute. So if you want to follow some positivity stuff, hit the subscribe, hit the bell. Anyway, there you go. So it's the end, well, it's the start of September, but it was the end of August, and I haven't done my run 5k benchmark session because I've been away and the weather was really hot, and I also didn't get out on my bike, so I didn't have my bike with me. And I haven't really figured out how to do a CSS test whilst I was in my dad's pool or in the open water stuff. So all of that needs to happen over the next week or so. What I have done at the end of the month was I did a ramp test on the bike, on the TT bike. Now, I do these fairly regularly, actually, about every 4 to 6 weeks, just to see where I'm at. I always do them on my race TT bike. So I've got a TT bike that's old and goes on my trainer, and I normally ride on that and just use my my turbo power meter and get it all set up for that. But when I do a ramp test, I always use my my race TT bike because it has a power meter in the cranks, a rotor power meter in the cranks. I also like to do my ramp tests in my TT position down here like this because your power changes if you're riding on the hoods or something else. So I always ride in the TT position to make sure that they're actually pretty accurate for when I'm racing. Now that brings me on to just briefly what I wanted to talk about this week, because I want to do a bigger video on this. But I was reading a report about how a big study did some research into 50 odd top of the range power meters and how there were massive variabilities between all of those power meters, inconsistencies, incompatibilities, not just between different makes of power meter, but also between different power meters from the same range, and they were reading outside of this 5% tolerance range that they sort of always cite for power meters. I thought very briefly I'd show you the difference between my turbo power meter output and my rotor cranks power meter, and then a bit later on I've also got a power tap that I'll put on, and I'll do a bigger test using DC Rainmaker's comparison tool and kind of just show you all the differences in between all these power meters. The point being, ultimately, you can't compare yourself to anybody else's power output. Somebody might be completely out of shape and be able to put out more power for their FTP, their functional threshold power, than Bradley Wiggins put out for an hour record. And it might also be that somebody can only put out something in the mid-hundreds and yet can ride faster than you. Obviously there are other variabilities such as size, weight and aerodynamics and all those kind of things, but ultimately the power meters that you have, you can't compare. And that's one of the reasons why I always do my ramp test with my TT bike, is so that when I'm racing I actually know what I'm actually comparing it to, whereas when I'm training I can just use my turbo and rely on those numbers. They're completely different numbers. The FTP that I get from my cranks compared to my turbo, I don't compare them. I don't use them against each other at all, and I don't compare them to anybody else. Let's just have a quick look at the numbers of what I got from this ramp test. So as you can see from on the left hand side here, I've got the Tax Vortex numbers, which is the turbo that I use. For the 18-20 minutes that I've selected, you can see that the average power output of recorded by the Tax Vortex turbo was 216 watts. Over here is the rotor in power, and that recorded 183 watts. Now, they talk about 5% tolerances. That's about a 15% difference between those two power numbers. And likewise, in terms of max power, the Vortex recorded 352 watts, whereas the rotor recorded 321. So it's considerably lower. You can see with the other numbers there's a lot more consistency between the heart rate recorded by my Garmin, which was the rotor in power, and the computer that was recording the Tax Vortex. So cadence was very, very similar. The heart rate was very, very similar. All those kind of numbers are very, very similar, but the power is kind of pretty out of whack actually. But I will do a bit more of a comparison between the power meters, just to show you that there's no point in comparing yourself to somebody else, or if you have a couple of power meters, if you're using a turbo and then race with a power meter on your bike that's different to your turbo, you can't really compare those two numbers. So, okie dokie, what's coming up over this next week? Well, I've got a time trial, got a TT coming up on the R1017 over in Wales at Raglan on Saturday. That's a 10-mile time trial that I'm looking forward to just kind of having a blast on, really. I haven't really done any dual carriageway stuff this season because I haven't really felt that in shape, and I still don't feel mega in shape anyway. That's where I got my 10-mile time trial PB, which I can't actually remember what it is at the minute, but I'm not going to be close to that. I just want to get a bit of a benchmark for a 10-mile for this season on that dual carriageway course. So that's coming up on Saturday. Obviously I'll probably do a video of that and talk about time trialing in general, because it's a bit of a British niche thing really, time trialing. It was where we were able to race when road racing had been banned. We took up time trialing and became very secretive in the UK, I believe about 100 years ago, and we used all these course codes, hence the R1017. That was to kind of make sure that people didn't know where we were racing, because the code names don't really mean a huge amount. There is a bit of a way of working out what certain things mean, but no one would be able to tell what R1017 is, or U17B, or any of those other kind of weird and wacky course codes that we use. But I'm doing that on Saturday. In the meantime, before that, I'm going to do a 5k benchmark run during the week leading up to that, to hopefully get under my target time. So TT on Saturday, and then the following weekend I've got the Exmouth Triathlon, which is the last try of the season, which I'm really looking forward to doing, going out and hopefully smashing that. The bike course is going to be a challenge for me. Run is 5k flat out back, so that's the plan for the next week, is to do some really intensive high intensity, high volume training over this next week, get back into an eating routine, because I've just basically been eating and drinking whatever I wanted in France, which has been good for the mind, body and soul, but not so much for the waistline perhaps. But anyway, try and get that weight back down, go back to the 800 calories, go back to the intermittent fasting over the next couple of weeks, do the time trial on Saturday, go and smash Exmouth, become an amazing human being, just do everything the best I can. What am I talking about? I'm starting to sound a little bit like a freak. I don't actually know what I'm saying now. Someone might need to come and stop the video talking, help me. So I don't know how to finish these videos or start them, clearly. I think the best thing to do is just stop it here.